morning. Welcome to Creative Morning Nashville. This month we're talking about truth with Jessica Davis. What are you going to talk about today?
Thank you so much for having me, Christy. So today I'm going to talk about what truth means to me as a designer and how that translates to the design process. And then I want to challenge everyone to leave here and really challenge themselves to think about what their truth is. So I'm going to hit on a few topics, and I'm really excited about it because this could be a really heavy. Truth is heavy, right?
It can be, but It is part of our everyday.
Yes.
And I think people are going to leave here feeling better with all of themselves.
I do too.
So, all right, it's going to be a great morning.
When her and I talked and she told me the theme for this month was truth, I was like, oh, shit, like that's a lot, right? Like we can dig deep into that. My goal for you today is, or my intention for you, I want to encourage you all to leave here inspired, and I want to encourage you all to leave here challenging yourself and digging a little deeper into what truth might mean for each of you, because it's a very personal thing, right? If I were to stand up here and call on one of you and say, what's truth? One of you inevitably would say, truth is honesty. And yes, it is. But what I want to talk to you about today, to start, is what else truth is. And over the last few years in our society, and I'm not here to talk about politics, let me make that very clear, but over the last few years, I should say, in our society, for the first time, truth has been questioned, where all my life, I just perceived truth as truth, right? It's just truth is truth. And it's not so clear-cut for everyone these days, okay? So, for me, the other things that resonate or that I believe to be truth are authenticity. Authenticity is truth, right? I feel very strongly in encouraging people to be their authentic selves, right? But along with authenticity, truth is also scary. It's difficult. It can be a relief, right? Truth can be easy and it can be hard. Often it's hard. I hate to admit that, right? But when things are heavy, it's hard. And then morally, you can get into your own personal, moral compass and decide morally what is truth, right? So it's a very personal thing these days. Truth is more than honesty. Truth is transparency. Truth is vulnerability, okay? And one of the things that I'm going to hit on today, particularly in regard to design, is your truth is your story. And as an interior designer, which I'm assuming you guys know about me, maybe I should have talked about that. As an interior designer, it's so important for me to know my client's truth, okay? To back up a little bit, my name is Jessica Davis. I own an interior design firm called JL Design. I founded the firm in 2005, shortly after becoming a Watkins alumni. I'm just humbled and grateful to do what I do every day. I remind myself, no job is easy. Being an interior designer is not what you think it is. If you're in the industry, you know what it is. If you're not in the industry, you might watch HGTV and be like, oh my God, that'd be so cool. I should do that someday. talk to me first. So I own an interior design firm here in Nashville. Been in business quite some time, and we specialize in residential and small commercial design. Don't do healthcare, hospitality. Don't get into all corporate design. It's not my thing. So a little bit about my truth I want to share with you all. A little bit about me. So I'm going to be a little vulnerable up here with you all. So I was raised in a family that was divorced, and in the 80s that was a little faux pas. In fact, of all of my friends, my family was the only divorced family, okay? My mother, who is a complete badass, I came from a family of badass women, which I'm grateful for, right? My mother, badass, my grandmother, badass, my great-grandmother, badass. She used to own honky-tonks on Broadway way back in the day. So very, very cool, very grateful for these inspiring women that I had the opportunity to have in my life to influence me, right? So had a single mother. She had my brother when she was 16. She had me when she was 20. I cannot imagine that. I would completely shit the bed. If I were 16 or 20 years old and had a baby, oh my God. So that's why she's a rock star in my eyes. So she was a hairdresser, full-time, worked her butt off. You know, in school, all my friends were wearing Tommy Hilfiger. I was wearing Walmart clothes. But you know what? I did okay, right? I'm fortunate enough that my personality got me through. I was very friendly to everybody. I was friends with all the groups, and I did well. But I was an art kid. So all through school, I mean, that was my thing. And when I graduated high school, I headed into college pursuing a fine art degree. At 18 years old, it's like, what do you want to do? Well, shit, I want to paint. I want to draw. This is what I love to do. And so I pursued that, and then I remember Watkins sent out a letter. And in that letter, it talked about job placement rates for each of Sam, I'm wondering if you got this letter. It talked about the job placement rates for each major, right? So photography, film, you know, Watkins was one of the only film schools, interior design, yada, yada, yada. Well, the only thing I cared about was fine art. 18%, okay? So my family didn't come from money. I worked full-time, went to school full-time, put myself through school. I worked full-time actually at a Sonic drive-in. Bought my first house when I was 21 because Bill Clinton let me get a loan, which I was very grateful for, and fixed it up myself and knew what that grind was like and appreciate that grind in hindsight. But damn, I knew I needed to be able to make some money. And so when I saw that, I thought, ooh, I might need to rethink this. And tried graphics. I needed hands-on. I didn't want to work behind a computer. So my counselor at the time said, I think you should try interiors. And I said, no way. I'm not doing that. Designing women, that's not me. So she said, no, Jessica, no. You need to try it. I think you'd be a really good fit. Like, you get to draft. No, I'm out. Math? No, I'm out. So I was very not open to it, but I did it. And after that first semester, I knew, okay, this is it. Right? This is for me. Fast forward, I'm interning. I have my first internship at a high-end residential design firm in Nashville. This would have been probably 2002. And I'm completely put off. Because what I was seeing was pretentious. I felt like the designers didn't really care about the functionality of the space. They cared about the most expensive drapery and the most expensive this and, oh, you've got to have this. And it grossed me out, quite frankly. I felt like people were being somewhat taken advantage of. And for me, I just thought, that's not what I want to do. I want to be the person that comes into your home, and let's think about this. Your home is where you will laugh, you will cry, you will celebrate birthdays, holidays. It is literally where you live your life. I am humbled and grateful when someone invites me into their home to help them create this space in which they will literally live their life. I don't take that lightly. And I saw it being taken lightly. So I said, I'm not doing this. I managed a restaurant for a while. I actually sold insurance for a while. But ultimately, my heart was there. And I came full circle back to the design industry, right? So here I am. I'm a designer and an interior designer specializing in residential design. So that's going to bring me back to truth. Some of my truths, where I'm going to get vulnerable with you today, some of my truths that carry into my story, that is an important part of my now space and how I work with clients, is A, I curse too much. That's one of my truths. B, I'm loyal to a fault. That's a good one, right? C, I'm authentic. I'm direct. I'm not a yes girl. I am often perceived as a bitch. It's one of my truths. I am a bit of a smartass. I have a really big heart, right? I've suffered abuses in my life that have shaped who I am, and I wouldn't change that. I have several tattoos, many of which I got at a very young age. and I have had friends, close friends, say to me, aren't you going to get that covered up? Or, you can get it lasered off. And here's my answer. This is my truth, okay? Everybody else, you walk your own walk. But for me, I said to that friend, no, because I want to remember who that girl was. That 18-year-old girl is still me. And I want to remember who she was. And so it will stay there forever, even if it's ugly, right? It's a decision I made, and it's a decision that reminds me of that girl, and I don't want to forget that girl. So for me personally, in my design aesthetic, I specialize in what's called vintage modern design. I'm also considered a vintage maximalist. The girls that work with me back here are like, hell yeah, she's a maximalist. She's got all kinds of stuff. And my personal design can be definitely perceived as a little juvenile, playful, lots of color. What I know is about myself, I lost a piece of my childhood through abuse. I lost some innocence, and I think that I'm constantly trying to capture that. Because in your youth, there's this magic, right? I have children now, and they're just about to not believe in Santa Claus. But that magic, that wonder, when I walk into a space and I see color and I see imagination, that's what resonates with me, and that's what makes me happy. So that's what works for me. What works for you? Maybe when I walk into a space, I want it to feel serene because I have anxiety, and I need that anxiety to smooth out in my space, right? So everyone's different. A lot of interior designers, as you probably know, have a certain look that they sell, and they do great with it. Like, I know who did your space, you want that space, you're gonna get this look. I have many colleagues, who sell that brand, sell that look, and they're very, very successful. I do not do that. I really pride myself, and the girls that work with me who are very talented, and they're in the audience, our mission is to create a space that is a reflection of who you are and not a reflection of who I am as a designer. Now, I'm not serving you well if I'm not pushing you out of your box, but I have to know your truth. I have to know your story. So that's what brings me now to how that connects in interior design specifically. We do a lot of discovery work. So if you, what is your name?
Annalisa.
Beautiful name. Annalisa, if you came to my firm and said, I want to redesign my living room or whatever. I want to add a bathroom, whatever it may be. The first thing that I'm going to do with you is explain to you kind of the logistics. Oh, this is our firm. We started past that, you've hired us. I sit down with you. I have you complete a lifestyle questionnaire. I ask you questions that you might wonder, why in the hell does she need to know that? But it's because I'm trying to understand you, not me. I can walk into a space and make it look beautiful. I need to understand you. And to understand you, I have to know your story. And to know your story, I have to know your truths. Okay? And to know your truths, you have to be vulnerable. These are things that many of you probably didn't think about in the interior design industry. And so I'm so grateful to be able to share with you that it's more than just making a beautiful space. As designers, we must first make the space functional, and in my opinion, create a space that's tailored to you as an individual, right? Today, I want you to leave here, and I want you to think about your truths and your story. And I want you to challenge yourself on two fronts. I want you to challenge yourself to level up. I'm sure everyone in this room is very authentic. That is not my, as artists, I find that a lot of artists are very authentic. That's not my goal. My goal would be, are there truths in your life that perhaps you are not capturing, reflecting, and sharing, right? It's not easy for me to stand here and say that I was a victim of child abuse, but it's one of my truths, and it's not something I'm shameful of. When you allow yourself to embrace your truths and share those truths, you allow this transparency, you allow this vulnerability, and the other thing you do is you weed out the bullshit people, quite frankly. If I tell the girls, if I am introduced to someone or potentially working with someone who curses me out because their sofa comes in the wrong fabric, they are not my people. I'm going to fix it. There's no reason to have a meltdown, because in the big scheme of things, it's a sofa, it's going to be okay, right? We're going to take care of it. So I think that as a whole, if we could all learn to speak our truths, if we could all define for ourselves what our truth is, and then when it comes to your interior, I'm going to give you just a little, I'm going to give you some design advice. I want to encourage you. I had a project one time, and beautiful home, beautiful client, love, love, love. And it came time for us, we got all the furnishings in, the build was over, everything's good. And we get to the point where it's time to style the shelves, which basically means I'm going to make the shelves look pretty, right? And I say to her, okay, what things do you want me to use? She's like, I don't have anything. Now keep in mind, she's lived a full life. This is not like a 17-year-old. So, and I'm like, what do you mean you don't have anything? I don't have anything. I just want you to go to like West Elm and buy stuff. She wanted it completely staged. And what that told me was, you don't want to share your story. Maybe you had this horrible past and you've tried to get rid of that. That's where it can get difficult. That's where truth gets difficult. Don't hide it. Celebrate it and change your mindset around it. It is who you are, just like the shitty tattoo on my ankle. It's who I am, right? Be truthful with yourself, okay? So the other thing, first of all, does anybody have any questions or anything to add? I'm all about, especially in a setting like this, like, please, by all means, if you have anything to say or have any questions, interject. Anybody? Okay, cool. Yeah, please.
They remind me, I think the Japanese, they have something like if you break porcelain and they put it back, that's, for some reason, came to my mind.
I love that. Yes, and there's a name for that. What is it? Yes. Yes, and really it makes it more, the broken are more beautiful, right? I mean, the patina, I mean, even in design when it comes to materials, I have to say to people who want perfection, they're like, I want everything perfect and I want this, Carrara marble countertop in my kitchen. And I'm like, then you need to be able to embrace the patina. I love the patina. Like, show me the story, show me that it's you, show me that you live in this house, right? If you, as a child, knew that you, let's say, loved photography. When I was growing up, I really wanted to be a photographer, but now here I am in finance. What? Celebrate that. You might not be able to make that transition at this point in your life, but why don't we, what kind of cameras did you use? Let me think about your age. So that would have been, so I'm going to go find some cameras from that era, and I'm going to put those on the shelf. Because when someone sees that in their space, it's going to spark joy, right? Subconsciously, it's going to spark joy. If there are things that were challenging that you've overcome, and there are certain objects or scents that are reminiscent of that, when you move to your space and you're living in your space, it should spark joy, it should spark comfort. But that comfort and that joy should come from your story, not a store. Not a store. Not a front, not somebody else's story. Not just this stuff that looks pretty and so I'm beautiful too, right? Use your grandmother's rocking chair even though it might not fit with the other stuff. I encourage you to push yourself outside that box and really just embrace your story, your family story, your truth. I think you raised your hand too. Yes?
Could you provide some insight on how you got from having whatever trauma or whatever like less than glamorous moment and the process of going from that to then celebrating it and incorporating it into your space?
Yeah.
CreativeMornings.
The answer to that is time. Okay, I've done a lot of work, and I've taken a lot of lumps. I was asked this morning in an interview, what superlative would you have been given, would you give yourself, or would have given yourself in high school? And I said, most likely to learn the hard way. That's it. So these young designers back here who are uber talented, who I'm so, that'll make me cry. So humbled, so grateful to have in my life and on my team. They know, like, when I teach them, it's not because someone told me, it's because I made that mistake, right? When it comes to the trauma that I experienced as a child, and to be transparent, I was sexually abused between roughly 6 and 8, 5 and 7. My rock star mom handled it, but it just took time. It took learning that I was safe. It took therapy that I still do to this day, right? Like, I think that even if you don't have trauma, talk therapy, cognitive therapy it just helps you grow as a person and learn as a person. So I'm a big proponent of that. And it took believing in myself, right? I looked at myself as a survivor. And I think that survivor mentality lent itself to taking risks in business at a very young age. When I started my business, I sat my mother and my grandmother down and I said, look, I have decided I'm going to branch out. I had about $150 in my account. I said, I'm going to start my own business. And my mother said, oh my God, no. And my grandmother said, yes. And so, because in my mind, at that point in my, I was pretty naive, but hell, I did it. It's just me looking out for myself. I'm 21, and I figure $150. Here's what I need. This is back in the day. I've got a spare bedroom. That's going to be my office. All I need is a separate phone line, separate fax line, and go to Kinko's and get some business cards, and I'm in. And it worked, but it wasn't easy, right? So that transition, that is such a good question. Time, honesty, transparency, authenticity. I'm not ashamed of the things that I've experienced in my life, and for my age, quite frankly, I have a lot of life experience. I'm not ashamed of that because it's made me who I am today, right? And even though it's tough sometimes to live my truth and be authentic to that truth, I feel like that's what I'm called to do, right? Does that kind of answer your questions? Anybody else have any? Yes?
I just want to thank you for talking about vulnerability. I think that I've always thought that was really important to be a great designer and never hear designers talk about it. So,
thank you so much.
If you want to talk maybe a little bit more about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, perhaps you have this with other clients. I'd be curious to hear. What I found about myself is after being married for decades, I gave away my truth. What's my color? And became. It was always beautiful. I've always had beautiful homes. Yet,
I love this.
After releasing the marriage, it's like, oh, what do I like? So it's taken a few years to really know that my house now is filled with colors, and serene places. But that transition from giving my truth away to finding my own, perhaps you have a story or two.
Oh. As we tend to do as women, right? We lose ourselves in that relationship, and especially when it comes to design and aesthetic, right? And I think that there's a fine balance. So when I got divorced, when I was married, I wanted some standard poodles, and my husband was like, yeah, nah. So when I got divorced, I got 2 standard poodles, and I painted my front door pink. So there you go. So one of the things, and this is a large majority of our client base, husband and wife do not have the same aesthetic. It is very, very, very rare that they are on board, right? I love it, selfishly, when the husband and wife come in and the husband's like, she can do whatever she wants. Yes! But that's not always the case, right? So what I say to them, I'm going to give you each a lifestyle questionnaire. It is imperative that you fill yours out independent of him, because I don't want your answers to influence his, and I don't want his answers to influence you. It is my job to mediate that, okay? So throughout the process, you're going to get some wins. Let's say you love color, he doesn't. You're going to get some wins. You're going to get some pops of color. He's going to get some wins, because at that point, our job is to make the space a reflection of each of you individually, as well as as a unit, right? It's challenging. It's really challenging, but that's what we have to do. So that's a really good question, and it's something that I love. Like when husbands and wife, and the girls can attest to this, we sit in meetings all the time where it's like, I don't like that, I don't like that. And I'm kind of like the mediator. Okay, you're going to get some wins, you're going to get some wins, everybody's going to be happy, because guess what? The professional in the room is going to tell you what needs to happen. So that kind of takes, couples fight about this when they move in together, and he's bringing his shit from college and I want this, and it happens. So very, very good question. Thank you for that. Yes?
To that end, do you have any examples of questions on your lifestyle questionnaire that you feel really get to the heart of somebody's story?
Not one in particular. So that's a wonderful question. So the lifestyle questionnaire asks things about favorite colors, least favorite colors, important factors. Is cleanability important to you? Is durability? How many people live in your home? Allergies? What are your favorite activities? But it's the very first surface level. I ask them like what colors they tend to wear, where they like to shop for clothing, because I'm trying to understand their style. But what I do beyond that is a very specific magazine exercise where I literally take a magazine and I ask them to allow their eyes only a moment to meet each page. And what they're looking at is just the overall look and feel of the page. And if their immediate gut reaction to that page is a positive reaction, I want them to mark it with a sticky note and keep going. I make it very clear that what I don't want them to do is look at it, oh, I like that, well, I don't want her to think I like, or go back through. If they overthink it, it doesn't work, right? Because I don't take anything literally. In fact, I could do this magazine exercise with a cigar magazine or a sports magazine, but it just so happens I'm a designer, so of course we've got design magazines, right? So we use those. But what it comes down to are design elements. These are elements that you see in graphic design. You see in all types of design. So I'm looking for line, texture, symmetry, asymmetry, different color relationships, and consistency in that. So these are things that you don't walk around knowing about yourself, right? These are things that I'm figuring out. So I have you go through this magazine, and then I look for patterns in what your initial gut reaction is. So that gets me a level deeper, but that's just on your aesthetic. Time with you, getting to know you. When I come to your house and I see your dog or I meet your kid, I listen. I listen and I ask. I don't dig, I want to be respectful, but I listen and I ask a lot of questions, So the lifestyle questionnaire is definitely a step, but there are additional steps as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, good.
Good.
Thank you.
Good, of course. Does anybody else have anything? Sure.
So when you were talking, I guess to echo a couple of questions prior, Bob shared that you were, in the corporate setting, and then you went to doing nothing to do with design, and then you went to working for yourself. Is the pattern that I hear there, and I think that resonates probably with a lot of creatives of the ebb and flow of doing it part-time, doing it full-time, not doing it all, getting burnt out and going back. Was there a catalyst or paradigm shift or something that happened when you decided to go back?
Yes. So, it's funny, in life you find these things that you fall into and you look back and go, oh, well, I gained something from that, right? Without that thing happening, I wouldn't have learned this thing that now contributes to what I'm doing today. So I had I got a job selling in, telecommunications. I didn't even know what telecommunications meant, okay? They hired me in sales, and I was like, I don't know how to sell this. And they were like, don't worry, you're just going to go in and talk, and then someone will come in behind you and kind of close the deal. So it was a bullshit job, but they paid well, and they were nice people. And so one of the things that I was required to do when I got that job was to join a BNI group. Who here is familiar with BNI? Anybody? Okay. Business Networking International, okay? They have chapters all over the world. And so I was required to join one of these groups. And I made great connections in this group. I happened to be in a really big chapter. And if you're not familiar with it, there's only one person from each industry allowed, right? So I held the telecommunications seat in the group, and a lovely woman held the interior design seat in the group. And she sat next to me one day. And we started talking. I said, I went to school for design. She was like, what? And she said to me, and she was probably 30 years my senior, and she said, Jessica, you need to be designing. You need to be designing. And I thought, I do, but I don't know where to start. And she said, well, I work at Sprint's Furniture as a designer on their floor, and I think they would love to have you. And so I thought, well, I wanted to bust right into like New York City, but you have these dreams. But I'm like, this could be a good stepping stone for me. And in fact, you would not believe how much I learned there. I mean, that's a wonderful family-owned business. So yeah, I took that leap and got that job at Sprint's, and then very quickly branched out on my own. But that was the catalyst. It was that person saying to me, and it resonated with me, and I knew she was right. Like, what was I doing? So that was the catalyst. Yeah.
Probably have time for one more question. Okay. Question. I just started my own interior design business 2 months ago.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Congratulations! So we need to have coffee because I love to mentor, and yes, you can learn from all my mistakes.
Your kind of values are very similar to mine, of like not projecting my style on the client.
Sure.
So if you could give like 1 to 2 pieces of advice to somebody that just started their own interior design business, what would it be?
Okay, I love it. Number 1, don't do your own bookkeeping.
I'm not doing that.
You're already winning. Number 2, and this one's difficult. And I bet everyone in here who, if you're in the creative industry, you're going to understand what I'm saying. I had a junior designer that worked with me, and she was very, very talented. And our agreement basically was, she was almost like a contractor. So she was working for the client to pay her, and then maybe we had like a split. This was years ago. But she was working on this design, and it was almost like she kept getting blocked. And she was getting blocked because she was thinking about the money. She could not, and I said to her, and this is a difficult, I want you all to hear me. As creatives, this is difficult. My fiance's in the back corner, and he makes fun of me for this. I will add, he's in finance. So completely different points of view. If you let the money drive you, it will not work. You have to believe in yourself. You have to give everything you've got to that design. Don't think about, oh God, is she going to pay me? Is she going to like it? My mortgage is due. I'm going to bounce a check. All the things that as creatives we get ourselves into, or as small business owners, especially starting out. Yes, that's reality. I'm not asking you to be naive, but as a creative, you will lose that edge. You will lose that creativity if the money and the cash flow is driving you. So compartmentalize and say, right now, I'm wearing my designer hat and I'm going to do my best work ever. And when I do that, the money will come. And you have to keep that faith. And if you can keep that faith and you can do your best work, I promise each and every one of you, I promise if you just dig deep, and I have learned the hard way, so I've been there, but I can speak from experience. If you dig deep, you believe in your craft, you honor the process, it will happen. It will happen, but it's real hard to not feel that financial pressure at times. So that's the other piece of advice I would give you. You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.